Hello everybody, and today I'll be talking about the third animation vodcast on video games. The first game to be created was called Tennis for Two. It's where two people would verse each other in a very competitive game of tennis, and it would go on for a while and until somebody won. It was very competitive at its time, but who knows how it will go today. And during the eras, there's been a lot of different games that have lots of techniques happen in them, and each game has its own unique touch to it. So, like, let's say if there's a game like Guild Wars, it has its own unique strategy, technique, and for action games, they have their own specific touch to it that makes it feel like it's not like any other game. And for most games, they have multiple titles within the series that have the same kind of storyline as the last. So let's say Call of Duty, although it has multiple titles within them, they have the same kind of storyline. So it'll be like, okay, it's during this certain war, then they continue on from the last mission they're on, and so on and so forth. Okay, so one of the brief definitions of what I'm doing on computer games from the following genres. I'm doing one of them as role-playing games. Now, the game is like this background picture, which is known as the Skyrim. It's a role-playing game where you go around, do quests. You can do side quests if you don't want to follow the storyline. You can do heaps of other things, and you can level up, because in Skyrim you can level up and then do the storyline. And there's a lot of choices in how you want to play the game. So let's say that if you want to do the side quest but not follow the main storyline for a while, you can do that. And like if you want to follow the storyline, that's fine, and then you can do the side quest later. But if you want to level up before you do anything, then you can do a lot of leveling up, and then once you're done that, then you can continue on with the story. And in games like Skyrim, you get to make a lot of decisions. So you can choose whether or not you do the storyline, whether you do side quests, whether you want to be a good or bad guy, whether or not you want to choose specific things for your character, because you get to choose what kind of fate you want, whether to be on the good side or the bad side, whether to be a mortal or immortal kind of thing. And you get to choose what you want to wear. So like if you want to wear a helmet in Skyrim, or have shields, swords, what race you are, whether you want to be a good guy or bad guy. You can wear certain armor and stuff, makes you stronger, so you get to choose what you want to wear that makes you really strong. Now the other genre I chose is action games. Like action games are basically, they focus on level by level. So like in Call of Duty, it focuses on level by level action, and it follows a specific storyline. So it's set in one place in one mission, then it goes to another place to say, okay, they went start here to go on to start with, then they got told to go to another place because there's a bad guy there or something. And there's some action games that are open world that focus on a storyline. So like if you say Assassin's Creed, for example, if you want to follow the storyline, that's good. Otherwise you can do what you want to get used to the controls, and they have certain objectives to achieve throughout the game. So like if in Assassin's Creed you start off as an assassin, and you have to find out your full potential. During the game, you can find out what your true potential is, and then once you finish one mission, and before you go to another, you find out what abilities you've got before you go on that mission. And there's like certain kind of ways of completing a mission, like let's say you must kill this guy with only using one weapon, or you must kill a guy very sneakily. And they have different type of accomplishments. So if you kill a guy with this kind of weapon, then you basically get 100% synchronization or something. And there's different difficulties, so like you could do it on easy, normal, hard, legendary, and all those other types of levels. And they have certain types of feel to each game. So like if it's an action game like Halo, it makes you feel like, okay, it's different from this game, but it's still good. And like Assassin's Creed, it's like, okay, so it's different because it starts in a modern day world and then it sends you to the past to get you to fill out these accomplishments to find out stuff about the future, which is good. And there are so many people nowadays that are addicted to video games because once they start, they won't be able to stop, and it's just too addictive. And people don't get much fresh air because they sit in their room playing video games, because once they're addicted, they can't literally stop, and thus they play it all the time, and the only time they get to have fresh air is if they go out for lunch or something, or if they go to get a new video game. And they have bad vision because when they're older and have bad vision, it's due to video games, so it ruins their eyesight, which is really terrible. In games, there is a lot of violence nowadays because they want to keep the different gaming companies want to keep the their viewers, so they make it more interesting by putting a lot of violence in there, which most of the people like nowadays. And nearly every single game has gore or bloody violence or all these other types of stuff, which most people like, but for the younger generation it's not that good because there's only a few games that aren't, gory and has lots of violence, and it can be too much to handle at sometimes because companies put probably a bit too much blood and guts in there, which can be bad. And the game I'm going to be reviewing today is Batman Arkham City, and some of the characteristics in that is a crime fighting game. So you get to there's a lot of fighting scenes. Some of the enemies in there are psychopaths. Batman is like a crime fighting dude at night, but a billionaire at day. He's got a lot of physical strength, crime fighting skills. The enemies though are like really psychopathic. They're crazy. They kill anyone that's in their way, and there's a whole lot of different enemies, and there's so much detail for them that can't really explain all the characteristics. Now, some of the details of the game, there is some interactivity with like some of the characters. So like with Vicky Vale, you get to interact with her a little bit. With Quincy Sharp, there is a bit of interactivity with him and some of the guards in there and some of the political prisoners. There are some interactivity with some of the people, but you don't interact with every single one of them. And like with a couple of bosses, you interact with them once they're in prison in a specific place. And also you can interact with some clues that you find that will go and toward the enemy, because if they leave something behind, then you can follow them using detective mode. And you can interact with the bad guys, so you can fight them and then find clues about some of the other bad guys within the game. And some multimedia effects include like how get some of those unique special effects on how the game is set and how you go throughout the game, because there's different music and different effects toward different parts of the game. And there are also certain things to achieve in the level, so like you have to sneak up on enemies, or you can find clues to find the enemy or defeat the boss, or you can interact with other characters to see what they know about each boss. And there are certain awards you get when you complete the level, so like you can get new gadgets, you can get brand new information that you didn't know, or all these other types of awards. There are some decisions you have to make, but there isn't a lot, because you know it's a more of a storyline based game where you do this or like this certain achievement, otherwise you won't be able to complete the game. You can make sure that there's certain amount of pain that you bring on the characters, but there isn't like that bloodied amount where you just bash them to death. You make them more unconscious via your punch. And there is a lot of randomness in the game, because you know some of the characters are insane, some of them wear makeup, some of them have really weird hair and whatnot. And if you just copy this link and see for yourself that during this game trailer you can see what techniques that they've used, what type of graphics they have, and also what types of stuff that I've mentioned within the game, that is, you know, got action, it's got a bit of role playing because it's got some side missions for you to do, it's got certain bosses, and it's got all these other special techniques that it has within the game. And I'd like to thank you guys for listening.